So hey guys, in this video we are going to start with the Dravid style of architecture, and in this video we are going to learn about the temple architecture, how its development happened in the southern India, various sub-schools of the Dravid style of architecture, features of the Dravid style of architecture. So without further ado, let's get started. So we find that the temple architecture in the southern India started in the reign of the Pallavas, and we also find that the temple architecture and its development, it happened in four stages, right? And what were the four stages? So first stage is called the Mahendravarman stage. In this stage we find that there used to be rock cut architectures, and in this stage we also find that the word temple as such was not used, but on the other hand the word mandap was used instead of the word temple. In the second stage we find that the decoration inside the cave started, and from the outside it was refined to give it a shape of the temple. In the earlier stage they used to call these temples as mandaps, but in this stage they started to call this structure as rathas. And the example of this temple architecture or this stage is the Dharmaraj Rath and Draupadi Rath, which are present in Mahabalipuram in Tamil Nadu. Now moving ahead, we find that in the third stage we also call this stage as the Rajasimha stage. You might be wondering why these names are given, Mahendravarman, Rajasimha. So let me tell you that these names are given on the basis of under whose rule this temple construction development, it occurred. So the first stage development occurred under Mahendravarman's rule, the third stage under Rajasimha's rule, the fourth stage we will look happened under the Nandivarman's reign. We come back to the third stage. In the third stage we find that now the real structural temples were developed, but now in the third stage we find that the temples, they took the shape of the proper temples which we find today. And the example of this third stage temples are Shore temple in Mahabalipuram, Kailasnath temple at Kanchipuram. And the fourth and the final stage of development of the temple architecture is the Nandivarman stage. In this stage we don't find a specific prominent temple architecture in this stage, but instead we find that many small temples were made at many places. Now we move ahead to the Dravid style of temple architecture. This is very important guys from the point of view of the examination, so please pay attention. In this stage we find that they also use the Panchayatan pattern. As we have already discussed in the temple architecture in the northern India, they also used in the Nagara style the Panchayatan style. I will also put the link of the video on the temple architecture in the Nagara style in the I button here above, so you can check that video out, and after that you can come back and check this video so that you will better understand this topic. Alright, now we move ahead. They also use the crucified ground pattern plan. This also we have seen in the Nagara style of temple architecture. But there were some differences between the temple architecture in the North India and the South India. One of the differences was that in the southern India we find that they used to have large water tanks inside their temple premises, and they also had an outside boundary wall, which both of them were absent in the Nagara style of architecture. In this Dravid style of architecture we find that the topmost structure of the temple, it was called Viman, whereas on the other hand we find that in the Nagara style of architecture in the North India, this topmost structure, which was curvilinear in shape, it was called Shikhra, right? But this Viman on the other hand, it was pyramidal in shape and it did not curve anywhere. We also find that there was only one small narrow passageway which led to the Garbhagriha, which was called Antarag in the Dravid style of architecture. And outside this Garbhagriha we find that there were sculptures of Dwarpal. And on the other hand, when we compare it with the Nagara style, we find that in the Nagara style the sculptures of Yamuna, Ganga or Mithun, they were carved, but not in the Dravid style. In Dravid style we find that the sculpture of Dwarpal was carved. The example of this Dravid style of architecture is the Brihadeshwar temple, which was made under the reign of Raj Raja I in Tanjore, Tamil Nadu, and the second one is the temple in Gangai Konda Cholapuram, which was made by the ruler Rajendra I, and it was made after he had conquered the Gangetic plains. We also find that the Chola rulers, they like to place their own images inside the temples. So in some of the temples which they constructed, we can find their own images have been placed inside the temples. Now the Cholas, they also made a very beautiful sculpture of the Nataraj, which is the Lord of the Dance. In this sculpture, we find Nataraj, the Lord of the Dance. He is standing in the Bhujangatarista stance and he is kicking the veil of Maya, and also he is trying to suppress the demon, and the name of the demon is Apasmar. This is also important from the point of view as UPSC has already asked a question regarding this, so keep this in mind. Now we move ahead to the various sub-schools which were present in the Dravid style of architecture. As we have already seen that there were many sub-schools present in the Nagara style of architecture also, in this Dravid style also we find that there are many sub-schools. So the first sub-school is the Vijayanagara style, and this Vijayanagara empire, it was established by two brothers Harihar and Bukka, and this Vijayanagara empire, it was ruled by four dynasties. Which were these dynasties? These were Agama, Suguma, Suluva, Tuluva. I know that they sound funny, but if you find them funny, it will be easier for you to remember these names, right? So try to learn these complex concepts in funny and comedic manner so that it will help you to retain the factual information in a better manner. And one of the most prominent ruler of this Vijayanagara empire was Krishnadev Rai, who belonged to the Tuluva dynasty. Now we move ahead to the features of the Vijayanagara temple architecture. So the first feature is that on the either side of the Gopuram, we find very unnatural or supernatural images of horses were carved. Like these horses were very big in size, and we won't be able to find the horses of this massive size in the real world. Or they carved horses having wings, that also we won't be able to find in the real world. So the next feature is that the temples had high enclosure walls. These walls, they were made high so that the temple could be protected from external aggression or when some other kingdom attacked the temple. Because in that time we find that all the wealth, jewelry, gold, all the treasures of the particular kingdom, they were kept inside the temple, and it was important for the particular ruler or the particular empire to protect the temple so that it can protect its precious resources. And that is why we find that the walls of the Vijayanagara style of temples were higher in nature. Right, now we move ahead to the other feature of the Vijayanagara style. In this we find that they introduced the concept of Amman shrine. Now you may be wondering, what is this Amman shrine? This Amman shrine is the shrine which was dedicated to the chief wife of the main deity. So for example, if there is a temple which is dedicated to Lord Shiva, so in the Amman shrine we will find the wife of the main deity, that is we will find the shrine of Parvati. And also we find that they introduced the concept of Kalyana Mandapam. Now we all know what Kalyan means. Kalyan means marriage, and Mandapam, so we can translate it roughly to the Mandap for marriage. Example is the Virupaksha temple at Pattadakkal and Shiva temple at Lepakshi. Now we move ahead to the next sub-school of the Dravid style of architecture, which is the Nayaka style. Now the Nayakas, they were the provincial governors of the Vijayanagara rulers, and after the decline of the Vijayanagara rulers, they started to establish their own small kingdom, and they also started to develop their own style of temple architecture. They introduced the new concept called Parakram, which was huge corridor which was covered with ambulatory passageway. And the example of this Nayaka style of architecture is the Meenakshi temple in Madurai, which is also called Sundareshwar temple. Now we move ahead to the third sub-school of the Dravid style of temple architecture, which is the Vesara style. This Vesara, this term, it comes from the Sanskrit word Visra, which means taking a long path. This style can be called the combination of both the Nagara style of architecture and the Dravidian style. Why? Because they took the concept of Viman from Dravid style, and on the other hand they took the concept of open ambulatory passageway from the Nagara style. And the example of this Vesara style is the temple at Badami and the Lakhan temple at Aihole. Now we move ahead to the last or the final sub-school of the Dravid style of temple architecture, which is the Hoysala style. In this style, we find that the temple architecture, it was in the shape of a star. So when you try to look at the structure or the design of the temple architecture, you will find that the temple architecture looked in the shape of a star. And the example of this style of temple architecture is the Hoysaleshwar temple at Halebid in Karnataka, and the second one is the Chanakeshwara temple at Somnathpura in Karnataka. So this way we complete both the Nagara style of temple architecture and the Dravid style of temple architecture. As I have already mentioned, I have already uploaded a video on the Nagara style of temple architecture. If you want, I will put the link of the video on the Nagara style of temple architecture in the description box below. Also, I have put the link of the Nagara style of temple architecture in the I button, so you can go ahead and check out both the videos. This way you will complete the concept of temple architecture in both in the northern India as well as in the southern India. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. And also I will put the link of this particular blog in the description box below. You can go ahead and check out the blog. And again, I will see you guys in the next video.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.